So we are live, continuing the session taken by Teeksha, handing over the stage to Teeksha.
Good evening, everyone. Welcome to today's session. I am Teeksha Harish, and today we are going to discuss upon GitHub Copilot and its use in TypeScript. GitHub Copilot is a smart assistant for developers, and it helps improve developer productivity as well as allow them to enhance their creativity by providing code suggestions so that they can focus more on working upon the main logic and the business logic of the code rather than writing the same code again and again. So, first of all, let's go through the agenda of today's discussion. First, we'll discuss what is GitHub Copilot and how GitHub Copilot works, and then what are the benefits of using it. Then, using an example, we'll discuss how GitHub Copilot, we'll see GitHub Copilot in action using an example. And then we'll move on to TypeScript. What is TypeScript? How is it different from JavaScript? And what are the benefits of using TypeScript in general? And then we'll see that how GitHub Copilot can help speed up the migration of a project which is originally in JavaScript but we want to migrate it to TypeScript, and how GitHub Copilot helps us in doing that and give us suggestions. Lastly, we'll see the impact on code quality which we get while using GitHub Copilot and the future of Copilot. So let's begin with the session. First of all, coming on to the introduction, what is GitHub Copilot? GitHub Copilot is an AI powered code completion tool that assists developers by providing suggestions as they write code. It is trained on a ML. It is trained on billions of lines of code available in public repositories, so that it sees what's the context of the code being written. It sees in our project what all libraries we have included, what all code we have written till now, and what code we are writing currently. And using that, it provides us suggestions and code snippets, so that we don't have to write redundant code. Uh, Coming on to its main features, first of all is code suggestion. It is based on context, which we discussed right now. That is, it sees all of the code we have written and what we actually want to do in a project. Like if I want to create a CRUD application or if I want to create just a static page, etc. And it sees what my aim is and then gives me code suggestions depending on the context of what I'm writing. Also, it provides this autocomplete feature, that is, while writing my code, it will tell me what should be written after, and I can just click a tab and complete my line, which makes my development process much faster, and we don't have to write the same lines again and again. It also provides code snippets. Like for example, usually in if we build a CRUD application, we have to include CRUD routes, API routes, that is like create, update, listing, read, and delete. And it is a repetitive task if we want to create in the application. So it provides us code snippets, and we can tell it how to adjust and modify it so that we don't have to write the same code again and again, and we can focus more on building, like designing the system, how we want the system to look like, and what is the business logic and how things actually work. Developers can focus on that and the creative part rather than doing the same monotonous repetitive lines of code rather than writing that. So GitHub Copilots also helps us in that. Thus, it helps in revolutionizing the way the developers write code by speeding up the coding process as well as reducing the errors during the development period only, rather than identifying it in the production phase. Now, coming on to, let's dive into how GitHub Copilot works. First of all, it is powered by OpenAI Codex, which is a machine learning model trained on billions of lines of code available in open public repositories. So, as it is trained on so much data, so it provides us with accurate suggestions as well as context-specific suggestions that is only related to our project and not just anything. Also, it has contextual understanding, that is, it sees what all libraries I have imported, what all modules I have imported into my project, and what is the code I am writing, what is my main goal, and while writing, it can see the context of the code being written and suggest the next line or even the next block of code that has to come next. So that is contextual understanding which GitHub Copilot provides. Another is integration with IDE. It works seamlessly with popular IDEs like Visual Studio Code. So for example, uh, I'm facing some error inside my code. So I have to first copy my code, then go to Chrome and use some other AI tool like ChatGPT, then paste my code and then say what is the error, why is it doing so. I can do it inside my Visual Studio Code only using GitHub Copilot as it is integrated with it. So I can just open the chat feature there and then type that I am facing this issue, and why is it so, please suggest me some changes, or please improve this code or something. And I don't have to repetitively switch tabs, which also improves my efficiency as well as speed. So that is another thing which a GitHub Copilot does. Like for example, when writing a function in TypeScript, Copilot suggests relevant code snippets based on the function's context. So it can provide me with various suggestions. Like it can give me 2 or 3 suggestions that this can be the code or this can be the code, and then according to my need and my understanding, I can choose whichever suggestion I seem is best for my application. Now, coming on to the benefits of using Copilot, first of all, it provides us with it provides us with increased productivity. That is, we don't have to write the same code again and again, and it sees the context of what we are writing and then suggests us full blocks of code. And I can just write the comments and it will give the code to me. So I don't have to do monotonous tasks again, and I can focus more on the business logic or the main logic of my application. So the productivity of developers are increased using this. Also, it improves code quality by it tells us what are the best practices to use in our code, and the common coding patterns which are used. So there are less bugs faced, as well as the quality of our code is improved if we by using Copilot. Also, it is a great learning tool for developers, for beginner developers. Like it can give example snippets and a variety of snippets. If I don't know how to go about some problem, I can ask that I want to do this, and it can give me 2 or 3 varied code snippets, and then I can choose from it whichever I seem fit, and I can see those code and understand that this is the standard way of writing the code. And also, this beginner developers can learn a lot by using Copilot while coding their projects. Also, it provides us with automated testing and debugging. That is, we can write unit tests using Copilot, which is a very crucial part in development. So that we can test our uh, app inside our in the development phase only, and not lead those errors to the production phase. So it helps us write unit tests, and also the debugging part. That is, we can identify them early on, and I'm not, for example, I'm facing some issue. I can just select my code and then go to the chat feature inside VS Code only, and then type that I'm facing this issue. How should I resolve it, or what are the possible issues that are causing it? It can tell me all of that, and I don't have to switch repetitively between my tabs to do that. And thus, the debugging process is also simplified a lot, and it can identify common syntactical issues which we might miss, like putting of semicolon or the closing bracket is not there or something like that. So that is also very easy to find using the Copilot. Also, another important feature, whenever we are writing code, we also need to add comments and write the code documentation if we want to work on that project in a team, or if we want to make that project open source so that other people can also understand our code. We need to have a proper documentation for it. But documentation is like quite boring task, and we all know we have to write lots of lines just to tell that this function as just this parameter, it would accept these parameters, it would output this type of data, and what basically the function is doing. All of this can be written by GitHub Copilot very easily by just by its suggestions and a few tabs, click on few tabs, which in general would require a lot of manual time as well as effort. And sometimes then people miss out, or basically omit writing documentation. So that is also good practice, so that it provides us with the it is it enables us to write documentation which can improve our code quality and also help us to collaborate with others in our team. Also, it provides us with workflow automation, and it can automate the repetitive task we are writing. That if it sees that we are writing a specific type of routes, then it can write the further ones or the further code base after it according to what it has seen, and we don't have to write repetitive things. So it can also provide automation in our workflow. So these are the main benefits of using Copilot in our application. Now, let's see an example of how GitHub Copilot can help us in writing code. Here, we only write comments and not see and not actually write the code. And using the comments, Copilot will see that what the user wants to write, and then it will suggest us the code snippets. Like if I want to create a post route, I'll write the comment create express post request for customer. That is, I want to create a post request for customer, and then as you can see, it suggests us. And then if we click tab enter tab, it will suggest us the further lines of code. Like it first tells that we can have an app post where the router slash customers and the usual request and response, and then it tells that we have to validate the customer. Then it validates us according to the interface, that if the request body is according to that, and then we validate the email. If it is not, we send the status 400, then we return, then it shows the customer, and also after that it returns the status 201. So in this, none of the code was written by the user. In fact, all of this code was written by Copilot, which makes the development process much faster and much easier. And so they don't have to write the same post code again and again. It can write according to the use case, like what I want to do. It will suggest me code snippets according to that. So that is how GitHub Copilot increases the productivity as well as speed of developers. Now, coming on to what is TypeScript. TypeScript is a strongly typed superset of JavaScript that compiles to plain JavaScript. And it was developed by Microsoft to improve the development experience and catch errors at compile time. So basically, TypeScript can't be run directly on browser or in Node. First of all, it is compiled to a JavaScript file, and then it is run on the browser or using Node. So that is one thing. And also, TypeScript provides us with static typing. So we have to specify that what variables that the variables are of which type, and what would be the return type of the function and all. So it allows us to find the bugs earlier in the development process rather than finding it at a later stage or in the development time. So let's see the basic differences between JavaScript versus TypeScript. First of all, JavaScript provides us with dynamic typing. That is, the type of the variable or the type of the entity is determined at the time when we are using the code, running the code. And in TypeScript, we have static typing, that we already predefine that what is the type, that for example, function only accepts string parameters and not integers, and so on. Also, JavaScript is an interpreted language, whereas TypeScript is a compiled language. That is, it is compiled to first another language. Let's say it is compiled to JavaScript and then run in Node or then run in a browser. Also, JavaScript is prototype based inheritance, whereas TypeScript has class based inheritance. So we can make classes, etc. in TypeScript. Also, JavaScript has loose syntax. That is, it is not so strict on syntax that we have to write it in this way only. Whereas TypeScript has strict syntax as well as strong typing. Whereas there is no type specification in JavaScript. So, because it has strict syntax and strong typing, so for example, in runtime, if a user enters some wrong details, it can give the error message along with why actually the error is occurring, and what is the reason. And we can catch errors early on in the development process. Like if we catch errors later on in the development stage, then it takes quite some time as well as effort to rectify those errors, as well as, let's say, if the application goes in production and then we find about those errors, then it will take maintenance time. App might have to stop for a time, and it is basically cumbersome and a lot of a headache. But all of these can be easily solved if we use TypeScript, and we have all the types specified for all of our functions, we have classes made, etc. So that is one of the main benefits of using TypeScript. Let's look at the benefits in detail. Like first of all, it provides improved code reliability. The same thing, that errors are found earlier in the earlier in the development phase as compared to production. So our code becomes more reliable, and it also reduces the time it takes to solve the errors. Also, it has easier maintenance. That is, as we have the type of as we have type specified for each and every element in our code. So whenever someone reads a large code base, someone is trying to understand that, or they are trying to maintain a large code base, and then they can understand that this function is accepting this type of data. It is returning this type of data type, and it is easier to like add new functions in that code base. And also, if there is a bug error occurring, then they can see that there is a type mismatch, that why the bug is occurring, or the bug is occurring because of some logical issue or that, or something like that. So it is easier to like debug and also add new features to the large code base, and thus it is basically more maintainable. uh, Also, it provides us with improved debugging, that it gives us specified error messages as to why an error has occurred, if it has occurred because of a type mismatch. If not, then whereas in JavaScript, if there is a type mismatch, the error message is not so clear that why it actually happened. We'll see this later in the later slide using an example as to how it improves the debugging and how it provides better error messages. Also, it provides us with enhanced ID support. That is, uh, if we write types to our variables and such, so it is easier for the autocomplete features in the IDs to uh, give better suggestions and give better auto completion suggestions to our code. So that is also another benefit of using TypeScript. Now, coming on to how JavaScript and TypeScript can be different. First of all, let's say we have a function greet where it accepts a string which is name and it returns hello and then the name of the person. Let's say I call greet Neha, then it will return hello, comma, and then space and then Neha to uppercase. Then Neha would be in uppercase and that would be the output of this. But for example, while running the code, if the user inputs the value as 123, which is an integer, so when this function is called, 123 dot uppercase would not be valid, as this function is only valid on strings. So we would get the output as hello undefined. So then the user would have to go into the code that why it is coming undefined. It would have to see, okay, then there is a type mismatch, that's why it's coming there. This is just a small example. In large code base, it would be much more difficult to identify what is the main cause of the error that is happening. Whereas, let's say if we write the same code in TypeScript, now we have a function greet where we can specify that the parameter name would only be of type string, as well as the return type of this function is string, like written here. So the this should also be string, as well as the parameter we accept is also string. So now let's say in runtime, the user inputs the value of the parameter as 123, which is an integer. So the error, and then the error they will get is argument of type number is not assignable to parameter of type string. That is, a number can't be assigned to a string type variable. So the user instantaneously knows that okay, I am inputting a wrong type, and that is why this error is occurring. And they don't have to go into the code base and then see that where is the error occurring. So that also speeds helps in debugging, and we can find these errors earlier on in the stage during development and testing phase only, instead of these silly errors occurring during the production, and then give we have to put in a lot of time and effort to solving those things. So that is how TypeScript provides us an advantage over JavaScript while building our applications and doing the debugging by providing better error messages. So let's say now if I have a JavaScript project and I want to migrate it to TypeScript, one way would be to do it manually, which can take up a lot of time and it might be tedious. But there is another way to do it. That is, we can use GitHub Copilot for it, and it speeds up the time it takes to for the JavaScript to TypeScript migration a lot. Let's see how with this example. Let's say I want to convert my Next.js project to TypeScript, which was originally in JavaScript. So I tell GitHub Copilot to do that, and it tells me to install these dependencies in my project. And so I can click these three dots and click run in terminal, and then I can install the dependencies in my project. And then it tells me that I have to rename all of my JavaScript files to .tsx files. The tsx files are TypeScript files, whereas JS means that file is written in JavaScript. So I rename them, and then we also have to add a tsconfig.json file to our project. So it also suggests me the content for that file, and I just have to click this insert button here, and it will insert all of the code into my file. So that is how easy it is to initialize the project. And then let's say I have this file index which is written in JavaScript originally, and I want to convert it to TypeScript. So first I convert JS to TSX, that is the extension, index.js to index.tsx. And then I ask GitHub Copilot chat feature. This is a chat feature. When we click on this, we get a chat inside our VS Code only. And then if I see that convert my file to TypeScript, it will give me all of the JavaScript code converted to TypeScript in my ID only. So I can see that it generated all of this code in a very short time, and then clicking on this insert button, I can insert all of that code into my file easily. And that is how easy it is to do a JavaScript to TypeScript migration via using GitHub Copilot. And it also gives me suggestions and reasons as to why it is, like for example, why it is changing a function or why it has provided this class to that function, and so that we can make informed decisions that whether we should do this type of change or we should follow some other approach. And it also gives me uh, if I don't like the approach it is currently given, I can also tell it to give me more suggestions, and then I can choose among them whichever I seem best from a project. So that is how GitHub Copilot helps developers improve their productivity and also enhance the speed of development process. So it makes it much quicker. So now, as we have discussed TypeScript in Copilot, now let's go on to how GitHub Copilot impacts on code quality. First of all, it provides us with cleaner and more consistent code. Like if we have a lot of people working on the same project, all of, and the whole group, everyone contributes some part of code in the project, and they might have a bit of a different coding style than the others. So GitHub Copilot can suggest changes and suggest snippets so that the code is more consistent throughout the repo, and even if different various people contribute to the same repo, the coding style is consistent and the code is clean and formatted. If the code is not formatted, we can tell it to format it or add the comments so that other people can understand it. We can tell it to write documentation, etc. So that is one thing which improves the code quality. Also, it helps us in bug detection. Like if I'm facing an error, I can just ask Copilot chat in my VS Code window only that what I am facing this error, what can be the possible reasons or how can I fix it, and it will give me all of the suggestions and the possible fixes that can be there because of that error. So it provides bug detection, and these bugs can be detected much early in the development phase rather than production phase, which saves us a lot of time and makes our code reliable. Also, we it also suggests us the best practices to follow. Like for the beginner developers, they might know what is the best practice or best coding patterns to follow while writing the code. So it it tells them about the best practices which they should follow, and that also helps the developers in doing their work. Also, it can write documentation for our files, which if we do manually would take a lot of time and is sometimes quite boring and people might skip it. But using Copilot, we can do it very fast, and we can just like open a file, select the code, and then say I want to write documentation for this function or for this file. Please help me, and then it will write me all of the proper documentation with what are the functions, what are its use, what is the whole code doing in general, and the detailed documentation also, and also add comments in between my code, so that can make my much more readable to other people. And also, if I am making my project open source, it can help other people to uh, understand my code much better and in a much easier way, and thus improving my code quality as well as collaboration. Also, it helps us in writing unit tests, as it does unit test generation, and it provides us automated code review suggestions. That is, for example, I'm writing code and I'm not exactly sure how I should go about it. I can tell Copilot that I want my project along these lines, and this is how the flow should be. Please suggest me some code. Or if I'm writing code and it is not following the proper practices, it can give a review that you are not writing it properly, or these are the things missing, or these are the bugs that might be there. So you should maybe follow this approach instead of that, and thus we can get good code review suggestions, which we might ourselves might not know that okay we are doing this wrong, but it can tell us all of the mistakes we might be doing or how we can improve our code in general. Also, if it helps us in providing optimized performance. That is, if I'm writing a code which is not that much optimized and it's taking, so GitHub Copilot can also suggest us that there can be an alternative to writing this snippet of code in a which can take less time or maybe less space complexity, and thus we can optimize the performance of our app if we use Copilot while developing our applications. Also, it helps in refactoring. Like if I wrote all of my functions and all of my code in one file, and now I want to refactor it into various files and structure, I can ask it what should be the ideal file structure of this type of code or this type of application, how I should refactor it, and also it can help me refactor it, which can be a lot of copy paste tasks, but it can do it very easily if we ask him and give him the context that what we actually want to do and how we should want to refactor it. And it also helps in migration assistance, like we saw earlier, that how easily we can migrate a JavaScript project to a TypeScript project without without doing much of manual labor, and it can do all of that on its own only, and also reduce the bugs that might be there during the migration process, as it is quite accurate in doing all of these things. So that is how GitHub Copilot helps in improving. That is how GitHub Copilot impacts the code quality that developers write. Now, coming on to what is the future of GitHub Copilot? First of all, as it is continuously learning and improving by people using it regularly in their day-to-day lives, by developers using them in their day-to-day lives, and it has ongoing updates. So a better and newer version comes in every day, not every day, comes regularly, and there are with the enhancement and AI, there are enhanced AI models used in it, and more data is there to so train on, and that's why it is improving continuously. And also, it will provide expanded language support. That is, more programming languages might be. It can incorporate and understand more programming languages and provide support for that, and also improve the contextual understanding, and it can provide more better and more specific to the point contextual understanding. Also, there can be increased integration. That is, the ID compatibility can be there. More IDs can be compatible with GitHub Copilot, and developers can choose the ID of their choice to uh, work on, and also platform integration and the integration with GitHub tools, etc. Then that is there, and also it ensures collaborative coding by introducing new team features regularly, and enhancing pair programming and encouraging that. So that is it about that, about the future of GitHub Copilot. Now, coming on to the conclusion, basically GitHub Copilot helps in improving developer productivity, and GitHub Copilot is revolutionizing the way we write code by leveraging AI to assist with code suggestions and improving the code quality, and so that developers can focus more on writing the main business logic of the code, thinking about that, designing the system rather than writing the same code snippets again and again, which can also waste their time, and also it helps in debugging and all of the things we saw. So that is how GitHub Copilot can basically help developers in their day-to-day life. Thank you very much for attending. I hope you liked the session.
Thank you so much, Teeksha, for being there. Let's end the stream.